We'll get going. Good morning. It's March 19th. Welcome to our Smart Market call. This is our weekly Friday morning, what we call our innovation series, where we celebrate thought leadership. We talk about the MX system, resources, tips, and tricks on the platform itself. We talk about companies that are adopting digital supply, and then we talk about more generic things like the market, mills, and supply, and what's going on in the typical market itself. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about exploring the 3 Ps of innovation. That is our own Joe, who is our Director of Technology. He's back in the back room exploring new tips and tricks on the system. But when we talk about innovation, we talk about new products, new people, and new processes. And those are some of the things that we're introducing here as we introduce MaterialsXchange to the marketplace. And again, we like to celebrate early adoption. There's a guy with his first new iPad probably 10 years ago. On today's call, we're going to have Gregg Riley, who is the Managing Director of Sitka Forest Products. Mike will be introducing Gregg here in a little bit. Gregg has a great background in the industry. He's very well known. He was a former president of Block Lumber Company and chairman of North American Wholesale Lumber Association as well. So we're looking forward to Gregg's insights as we move forward here. So we talked last week a little bit about new products that are hitting the exchange. Last week we talked about dry dug fir, hem fir, fir and larch. We also reintroduced the concept of MX Premium, and we actually have a spec written for MX Premium as a criteria, a grading criteria. And we showed you how to access that on our drop downs. This was again last week when we added AQKD radius edge decking to the mix. You can see that our drop downs are starting to get fairly lengthy as we add more and more products on there. In future releases, you're going to see we're going to start to consolidate some of those up and make them a little bit easier to digest. But it is important to realize that you should log in and out daily on the system, because as we make refreshes to the program and to the products and whatnot, you want to be able to see all those. So that's just a reminder to log in and out on a regular basis. Your watch list, when you're building your watch list, they will stay in place, but the pricing will actually be refreshed daily. So your watch list will stay there, so don't be afraid to build those out. This week, we also introduced a new product on the OSB side called OSB Radiant Barrier and OSB Radiant Barrier Prompt. And I'm going to stop for a second. Michelle, I'm going to ask to unmute you. I don't know if you can we hear you, Michelle?
Hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning. I wanted to introduce Michelle Cassidy. ALL Roofing is a new user to our marketplace here. I think last week we signed ALL on board. Michelle's been very aggressive about getting on board as a user. She also immediately saw the benefit and registered themselves as a seller as well. And ALL Roofing is one of the branches, one of the locations owned by SRS Distribution. So Michelle, if you wouldn't mind just for a second, kind of introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what you saw on the platform and how you came to put some Radiant Barrier out for sale.
My name's Michelle. I'm branch manager at ALL Roofing Materials in San Jose, California. We were acquired by SRS Distribution back in July. And buying wood, we've always worked really hard to buy wood strategically. It's a way to, definitely put a little more to our bottom line if we can do it correctly. With how crazy everything is right now, we were able to, set ourselves up, pretty well moving forward. So finding out about, this exchange was great, just because the way we've done it forever is just through phone calls and emails, which can be a little frustrating when things are moving so quickly, because you have to reach out and you don't necessarily hear, back from someone right away, or you hear back from one person, and then, somebody else comes back with a better price, but not until, an hour later when the other, anyways, it just, I thought that having a digital marketplace just makes so much sense. And yeah, and right now, you know, we have bought wood to where we do have some that, you know, I would love to see if I can put on the marketplace for somebody who maybe needs it promptly, because it can be, you know, hard to get right away sometimes, right now. So that's where we're at.
Very good. Well, thank you for that. And you can see the OSB radiant barriers when you look on your screens when you sign into your individual watch list. Now you'll see OSB radiant barrier and barrier prompt as product options in your drop downs when you log on. And again, make sure you look over to the right hand side. You'll just got 3 different exchanges that we offer. The OSB radiant barrier and prompt is on the panels tab. So make sure that you look for those and add those to your watch list. And there they are, the different listings we've got for OSB. We've got OSB, OSB North and Prompt, and now OSB Radiant Barrier and Prompt on the platform. So when we talk about new companies, we've shown this slide many times. You know, our exchange appeals to LBM dealers, component folks, distributors, construction suppliers, industrial. We talk a lot about the fact being able to also sell on the platform. We keep reinforcing that message. And this week we added turnkey framing as a subcategory to the kinds of people that are browsing for material on the platform. And we signed up a new company this week that I had a nice conversation with Chris Tatke. Chris, I wonder if you could unmute for a second. DC Materials is out of Stoughton, Wisconsin, and they are a turnkey framer. Chris, are you there? Well, if Chris were here, he would be telling you about the business that they do. They do a lot of on-site delivered construction. They actually do support component manufacturers as well as multifamily projects. Maybe if Chris jumps on here, it's funny, I was just emailing back and forth with him. So,
well, I can tell you this, Paul, the first things Chris would say is it's Stoughton, Wisconsin.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I stand corrected. If Chris jumps on here, but we wanted to announce DC Materials, and we've got several others that are fitting into the turnkey framing category. So we're adding that. Again, it's interesting as we build out the exchange, you know, the labels don't matter as much as the business function and the business processes, right? And if people are buying or selling wood, the platform just makes sense for them. So what we call them.
Hey, Paul, if I could jump in just a quick second talking about the turnkey framer. I had a call yesterday with a retail lumber dealer who services turnkey framers doing multifamily hotel type projects all over the United States. The nice thing about the platform is that you can add as a location, basically a temporary location of a project that you may have. So this user was really excited. They had a project coming up in Florida. They were from the upper Midwest. So all we have to do is add the address of the project in Florida, and now they can have product show up on their platform, priced, delivered to that project. When the project's over, we simply remove it from their dropdown and add the next project that they're looking for. So it's a great way for any of you who may have remote projects that you are shipping direct into to add them. It's so easy to add a location to the platform. And then moving forward, you'll have that pricing.
I appreciate that, Mike. That's a good example of business processes changing now as people are supporting out of market projects. I've had several guys tell me that they're selling to regions that they're not as familiar with necessarily what the distribution structure is, and certainly what the pricing is to those areas. So the exchange really just limits that, or just levels the playing field on that. So thanks for adding that in there. Just as a reminder, we've added some, but since we're adding so many new people to the platform on a regular basis, we've started a daily training call. We're going to do this on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 1 o'clock Eastern. It's just a Zoom call that you can log into, and we'll walk you through basically the front to the back end, how to log in and maintain your accounts, and how to set up your watch lists, and essentially how to bid and exchange information on the exchange. And then we also talk a little bit about reporting. So that's going to occur every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday as a standing Zoom call. And of course, we can also do one-on-ones, but we were getting behind the 8 ball with the number of new accounts that we were signing. Just want to talk about communications for a second. I got a great email the other day from Brett from GR Mitchell. Paul, hooked up on 2 loads of lumber so far. One quick question: does the exchange ever buy lumber directly? So I do get that question a lot in training, and it's an interesting question. You know, we actually don't buy or sell lumber. We actually don't set prices, and we don't take inventory. I frequently refer to the exchange as the plumbing under the sink. We are the conduit that attaches both sides of the market, the buyers and the sellers. And we allow them not only to speak, but also to negotiate and then finally transact, all in very, very simple and quick steps. So I thought that was worthy of mentioning. When I get these kinds of emails, I'll share them with you. And Brett, thank you for that. And also on the topic of emails and communications, you're seeing come out every morning, usually around 10 o'clock. I will send something out to all buyers and sellers. This was yesterday's. And I talk about, this is what's on the platform. Again, as a reminder, this is to a specific location. It's not your location. So these prices are generic. It's a reminder that you have to log on to your own system to see your landed costs. And on that note, in the mornings early, Ashley will send out something to the supply community reminding them to list their products. Sometimes the suppliers have a cup of coffee in their hand and they forget to turn around and actually enter items onto the exchange. And here Ashley celebrates this. This actually went out this morning at 7:30 this morning. Ashley, I'm going to turn it over to you and then segue to the market report. So why don't you go through this a little bit?
Yeah, you bet, Paul. Thank you very much. I was just reading that. My wife would kill me because there's 2 typos in there, and I thought I read it. Appreciate it. Michelle, great to have you on the platform. And I'm also excited today. Gregg's on, and this communication kind of shows how we communicate with our users. Gregg and I were having breakfast one morning. He said, hey, why don't you send out a communication every morning to people to tell them to get on? I'm like, huh, what a great idea, right? So started doing that. But Gregg will be on in a second. Cool. What I wanted to say about Gregg is kind of a mentor of mine. We grew up in the industry. I grew up in the lumber industry, but joined Block Lumber. Gregg basically taught me how to buy and sell lumber, along with probably 20 or 30 other people in the industry that are now either running companies or big parts of companies. So I want everybody to realize that Gregg's depth of knowledge, but also training people, has affected the industry greatly in many ways that some people don't even see. So this push today was a perfect example of something new. A new person in Iowa that is selling and really does everything at his company. Basically, by joining MX, he just hired a whole digital sales team that he currently doesn't have. And he did 2 loads. One of them went to Southern Indiana to somebody that has never bought from him. And that person needed the load of 2x420s pretty badly and got it. So it was great. Happy about that. It kind of shows how the digital network works. Highlights for this week. Most days we had over 200 items on the platform, cars and trucks, most active bids, people actually willing to buy and putting the number and being the aggressor, putting the buy number out there. That means people are changing their habits. We're normally used to offers coming in as buyers and we wait and we wait. Now we can be the aggressors as buyers and put it out there. We're seeing that. A lot more OSB on the platform. So OSB is tight. Paul sent me a note last night from somebody, hey, so-and-so sent me a note. They've got loads of OSB to sell. We've heard this multiple times now. So in a tight market on something, we're able to push product back into the pipeline in a direction that it's not used to going. So again, most new people on the platform, most active bids. What we're starting to see, this is the first time in probably a month and a half, I'm actually seeing people taking counters on a lot of European lumber, and some other products. And I'm not going to make any judgment on where the market's going, but that's the first time I've seen that in a while. So it's a good opportunity to put bids out there. So the call to action this week is to, being Friday, put bids out there. I know personally, and you all know who you are, some are on this call. I've asked you to put bids in the market and you've all been looking at the data. I know you all buy every day, and I know this is different. So I'm challenging you to actually put a bid into the market for you that haven't done it yet. If you need help, I'd be glad to help you. But I know I call a lot of people and the answer back is, I'm not buying today, or I'm not looking. And after 2 months, I don't believe you anymore. So let's actually use our platform instead of looking at the data to actually be proactive, because we're only as good as our users. And what we need you to do is give information back to sellers, because that's a fair trade-off. And I've got a little note over my side that says, good data takes out emotion. And this industry has too much emotion and not enough good data. I'd tell you who that quote is by, but it's not a website everybody probably ever wants to go to. But it was interesting in a new book I'm reading that my wife gave me. So the call to action is, let's all put some stuff on the platform, and let's all support the people that are supporting a digital market. Paul, back to you.
All right, Ash, I appreciate that very much. At this point, I am going to turn it over to Mike Wisniewski, who's going to introduce our guest here this morning. Mike?
Thank you very much. One quick thing before I get to Greg, I want to just add on to what Ashley said. We know we're not the end all be all for your buying, but boy, if I was sitting in a buyer's seat or a seller's seat, I would have our platform sitting next to me. And I, for sure, before I bought something, I'd throw a bid onto this platform a little bit under that to see if I could do just a little bit better. And if I was selling something before I actually took someone's bid, I would put the offer out on the platform and see if I could get it a little bit better. That's just what I would do personally. Okay. So Gregg Riley, mentor to me, like Ash said, we worked together. He hired me with my first job, but that doesn't matter. What matters is what Gregg is going to share with all of us today. He is a scientist when it comes to lumber. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Well, I'll do that in a moment. Gregg's been in the industry since 1980, and he has seen a lot of good times. He's seen a lot of bad times. He's seen good times and bad times in the same day. He's seen every spike up and every spike down since 1980. The resource he is, as far as market knowledge and the way he looks at the market, is, I'm going to say, unprecedented. So without that further ado, I want to introduce Gregg Riley. Morning, Gregg.
Mike, do you want to go through that survey you asked me to put up?
Yep, we're going to do that next.
Okay.
So good morning,
Thanks,
Gregg.
Thanks, Mike and Ash, for the kind words. It was you guys were young bucks when we started together, and obviously it's really exciting when you see people that you start out with get far in life, and so it's your victory is a joy for me, that's for sure.
Cool. So I'm sure everyone's had the opportunity now to read the slide. Gregg put the survey out and the numbers came in. So Gregg, what do the numbers say to you from the survey?
Well, I've periodically kind of done these surveys over the last number of years, kind of, and I feel when the market's at inflection points, as much to, get information as to give information about the market. And honestly, when I look at these numbers, obviously it says to me 80% of the market feels that it's going to be at the current prices or higher, and that's not really earth-shattering, given what we can all see in front of us in terms of the level of business that's out there.
Now, speaking of the level of business, one of the things, like you and I both know, is how much of the current business is actually repair and remodel. and is hard to really measure. So what do you do to kind of keep your tabs on the repair and remodel market? How do you get an assessment of that?
I mean, it's really, you know, one of the things with the market is, you know, we all get information on supply, demand, equilibrium. As you know, the market's always trying to seek equilibrium, and all the information that we get is really so either anecdotal or outdated. You know, a perfect example of information of value is, you know, you look at the prices that, you know, the price run in the last year, and I just saw the data on production for last year. North American production was up 1%. Now, the interesting, when you dig into that, Southern pine production was up 7.2%. And if you think about how much production fell in the second quarter during COVID, how much of an increase you had in the second half of the year in order to be up 7.2%. You know, first quarter is the lowest production quarter of the year, which is why historically, if we look over, you know, pick a time period, 10 years, 20-year time period, the most prevalent high of the year is in the first quarter, lowest production quarter of the year. And it's also the time of the year where the industry is building inventory in anticipation of the spring building season. Getting back to the repair and remodeling, really the only information that you can get in a real-time basis is from those suppliers that provide VMI programs, because they're the ones that get real-time data on what the outflows are.
You're talking VMI to the big box stores.
VMI right? To the big box stores. So those people get, you know, they get a view as to what's really happening because they can see week in and week out, what is their drawdown? You know, is it accelerating? Is it above budget? Is it below budget?
That's good feedback. I know one of the things I look at is the quarterly reports from Home Depot and Lowe's, and you can, you know, dig into there and you can figure out what kind of volume they are moving through their stores. I know you probably look at that as well, right?
You know, quarterly reports only if I want to go to sleep at night.
All right, we're gonna shift gears just a little bit, but I want to highlight something on the report. I believe in the 80-20 rule. It's a crazy in life. You know, 20% of the people do 80% of the business. It's comes up all over the place. One of the things that Gregg has always said is the market will do what causes the most amount of pain to the most amount of people, which goes along with another one he says, which is looking for everybody on the same side of the boat. I guess I'm kind of foreshadowing my opinion here. It seems like 80% of the people think we're staying here or going higher. Do you qualify that as everybody on the same side of the boat ish?
Yeah, ish. You know, I mean, here's the reality is we're at unprecedented prices, and these are long-term unsustainable prices. All commodity products, I don't care whether it's lumber, copper, soybeans, pick a commodity. Long-term prices always seek to return to the cost of production. And if we look at lumber over the last, you know, I don't know, pick a number, 20, 30, 40 years, the price vacillates pretty closely to the cost of production. And so we will be back at the cost of production in lumber. 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 3 months. I don't know. I don't know for sure. But I just know that we will be back there at some point in time. Now, obviously, cost of production, different regions, it's going to rise from what it historically was. And so at that point in time, we don't know what that's going to be. I mean, if Western spruce was $350, you know, maybe now it's $400. I don't know. But yeah, back to the market doing what causes the most people, the most amount of pain and suffering. Historically, if you can figure that out, right? That's what it will do. I'm
Hey,
not, I'm not sure right now that it's that clear, Mike, in the short term. And I say the next 30 to 60 days. I'm not sure it's that clear.
Got it. Hey, Paul, can you give me the screen for a second? I want to share a chart here that we can talk about.
Go ahead. There you go.
All right. Is this chart popping up for everyone? So this is the lumber front month lumber futures since 1970. And, you know, Greg started out the business right here. I'm sure you can talk about the doldrums of the 80s. We really didn't go anywhere. And then early 90s, things started to swing around.
Those spotted owl was the first spike there.
Yeah, for sure. I think we could pretty well say the cost of production is definitely higher than the lows of these numbers. My guess is cost of production, and I've heard the number thrown out a couple different times. It's somewhere between 300 and 400, probably closer to, 350. And it's, of course, a function of log costs. So, saying what you just said, it's not unheard of that we couldn't pull, get dropped back to these levels. But at the same time, when you look at the demand side, we've been as a nation underbuilt for a very long time. Like, there's no doubt housing starts are going to be, I think, at this level or better for the foreseeable future. And the amazing statistic to me personally is the housing start number in China, which is like 10 times our number. So when China wants to turn on the spigot, it changes the game completely. So with that, let's shift over to the science of the market analysis that you do. And you taught me the term relative value. And why don't you explain relative value real quick, and then we can talk about what you see in that.
Well, the concept of relative value is by looking at all the different components of the lumber market and comparing their value to each other over the course of time. And some of the models that we developed back in the day were obviously all driven off of Western spruce 2x4s because it's the bellwether, it's the thing that's traded on the futures market. And so, we do analysis that looks at what are all of the different products that trade. Doug Fir stud, Southern Pine 2x4, number 3, Eastern 2x6, 104 and 5/8. What are those prices today relative to their historical relationship? And are they overvalued or undervalued? And we use that as the basis to provide fixed long-term pricing to primarily the multifamily sector. And I mean, that's one of the value propositions of Sitka is we provide pricing for lumber, whether it's to just provide a service and providing a quote or to fix the cost on projects that start, 3, 6, 9 months out and maybe go for 3, 6, or 9 months. So, I mean, one of the interesting, Mike and I were talking before, and I was looking, there's a number of products that their historical relationship has blown up comparatively, and they are 2 or 3 times as overvalued as they ever have been historically. So, you look at, so it's kind of like, what do you do with that? What does that mean?
So what's an example? Give me an example of one of the items.
An example is 2x4 9-foot, 2x4 9s.
Okay.
Right now, long-term, the long-term average price of 2x4 9s is, where is that? Eastern 9s historically trade $100 over Western spruce 2x4s. And today they're more than $300 over. So they're incredibly overvalued.
And this all goes back to the fact that we start out with a round piece of wood, round log, and we turn it square, and we can make it into whatever square we want, right? So you're not the only one that knows this startling statistic. The mill knows it, and guess what they're going to do? They're going to make 9-footers, right?
And you see what happens in the marketplace is, most recently. So we saw this last spring. If you remember when COVID hit, the first price that rallied was 2x4 8-footers, because all the home center business blew up, and they just couldn't get enough 2x4 8s. And at one point in time, 2x4 16s were $100 below 2x4 8s. Well, we knew that wasn't going to happen, because you can cut 16s in half for 8s. And then once the price of 16s went up, they still needed more 8s. So then they started buying 9s to cut back to 8s. And then what'd they do after that?
18s in half.
10s.
Oh, right,
10s, 18s. But you get my drift. And so what we just saw recently is, what's one of the tightest items in the market right now, all of a sudden is 2x4 10s, because guys are cutting them back to 9s.
Yep.
Market has a way, the market has a way of correcting itself, as I guess is the underlying of that.
Yeah, I remember the trade back in the 90s when we were working together. Hem fir in the fall, we would buy 2x12 hem fir at unbelievable discounts to 2x4 Western spruce, and bring it into Chicago, and you wait 2 or 3 months, and all of a sudden it's like overnight it became the premium to 2x4.
Yep, that was a good trade. It was pretty consistent over the years. That's for sure.
Excellent. So shed a little light on the discount in futures right now, and how you see that affecting the ability of distributors, number one, to hedge inventory, and also how pricing, forward pricing, and how that's going to play out, or how you see that playing out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it's twofold. There's number one is there's really no ability to manage risk from an inventory standpoint, given that the futures is $175 below the cash market. And as I highlighted, there's a number of items. There's very few items that are undervalued, and you take $175 off, then there's nothing that's undervalued relative to the futures market. Now, conversely, that works great from a forward pricing standpoint. And, there's decent sized discounts for jobs starting, July, August and on. There's substantial discounts available to lock in fixed pricing.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if people on the call here are seeing their contractors ask for, oh, can you price me into the fall? Because it's a big discount, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And of course, it all comes with its own risks of non-performance. So you definitely want to make sure you're documented up properly. All right, let's
risk is an issue, that's for sure.
So let's move to the future real quick. What is something that you see that you don't think other people see as a fundamental change in the market going forward? And, this could be economic, it could be product, just something that you're just kind of got your finger on the pulse of, that you're keeping an eye on.
I really think it's MaterialsXchange becoming the industry bellwether, and just blowing up, and that's probably the biggest change that I see that the rest of the industry may not see. Although a lot of people on this call may also see that.
Well, thank you. That was a softball. I didn't mean it to be like that, but I do appreciate.
You know what? I mean, when you throw underhand to me, Mike, I can't help but hit it.
That's true. Now, that being said, you were early adopter, and to date, you may be the #1 seller on the platform. What's your experience like so far? How do you see it as a value?
I mean, the real value is getting to interact with you and Ashley on a regular basis. But no, honestly, the value as from a seller's standpoint, the value is clearly that you get access to a wide range of customers that you otherwise wouldn't have access to. And I can say that, of all the sales I've made, not only are they shipping products out of like their natural market because of the logistics component within Materials Exchange. So that's a big seller from a selling standpoint. From a buying standpoint, it's really the flip side of that. The buyer has access to product that he might not otherwise know exist, and gets to take advantage of dislocations in the market, because we all know this, like the business, it's a logistics business, and the ebb and flow of product moving from region to region, and availability. Hey, something's really tight in one region, you pull from other regions. You see this acutely in OSB, because it's produced in all different regions.
That's been actually really cool.
So that's really that's what I see. I mean, I know that, you and Ashley and I have had, lots of discussions, and, future iterations of the platform are going to just blow people's minds, in terms of what it's going to be able to do for them. And I'm really excited about that.
And I do want to highlight something about the region to region thing. What we're talking about is data. And I was blown away when you told me that a price report has said the price of 2x4 is flat for the last 4 weeks.
Yeah,
it's the same. Now,
Random Length 2x4s are unchanged for 4 weeks in a row, 1,025 mil.
Anybody on this call believe that? Does anybody believe that price has not changed? We know that's not true. Gregg's been privy to the relationship with Ash and I, and we can shed, data information to him about what we're seeing just being offered on the platform and how the prices have moved around. So when Gregg mentions the new versions coming out, we're going to share this data that we have about where the prices are at, where they're trading at, where the offers are at. We need more bid data, like Ash was saying, but our value, without a doubt, along with being able to move that product to the areas that want it, is the actual price data, seeing real change, not week to week change, or in a volatile market as we are, it's not believable that the price hasn't changed, right? All right, Gregg, this was great. Thank you for shedding light. If anyone wants to talk relative value, talk forward pricing, get in touch with Gregg for sure. A beacon of knowledge for sure. I am going to wrap it up. I personally appreciate everything Gregg's done for me in my life. I appreciate that he's on this call, and I appreciate his support for Materials Exchange. I also appreciate everyone else that's on this call listening in.
Hey, Mike.
One quick highlight, Chris Bouchard threw a deal out on 5/4x6 radius edge decking from Larch Decking. I can't tell you enough. You should look at that. If you're in the cedar business at all, you should look at this Larch Decking, because it is about the same thing at a third of the price. So feel free to reach out to Chris. He will give you all the information you need on that product, and he can get it to you anywhere in the United States. So back to you, Paul.
Very good. And thanks for that, Mike. And if you want to get a hold of Gregg at Sitka, certainly you can go to his LinkedIn page. He's got all his information there, or obviously contact us here where we're constantly on the phone back and forth with Gregg as he's looking at listings and putting stuff on putting material on the exchange. So we can be a good way to contact him as well. And Gregg, thank you also for your support and your participation on this call here this morning. With that, I think we're going to wrap it up. You mentioned throwing bids out in the marketplace. When we woke up this morning and we opened up the market, Ash pointed out the very, very, very first item on the exchange this morning was a buyer that had his hand up before anything was listed at all. So that is a really, really nice development in the way that we think and the way that we're thought leaders, and our business processes are starting to change. So anyway, thank you for
Hey,
that.
Paul, one last thing. We're going to continue this format of having a guest speaker every week, and we are finding some really good speakers. If you have friends that want to join the call, you think would get value out of the call, just reach out to Paul and we will get that invite to them. I think you can even probably share the invite with them. I would love to grow this call to 1,000 people every Friday morning and have some amazing speakers. And the more value we provide to you, we know that you will participate with the market, which provides value to everyone. So as a community, we can improve the industry one Friday at a time.
Very good. And Michelle, thank you for your kind words as well. Take care, everyone. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.